This happened the night before May 1st, 2013. I was 21 years old at the time. I was studying abroad in England, and there's a big celebration that starts early in the morning and can potentially start the previous day, called May Day. I wasn't a huge partier while abroad, but this was in the middle of my second term and I was feeling lonely and self-destructive. I was struggling with my courses and just generally adrift, and thought maybe getting hit on and having a few drinks would cheer me up. So despite the fact that I would be on my own, I decided to go out and get drunk, without telling my flatmates my whereabouts. I'm pretty independent and had traveled around Europe during the break, so I felt I could handle myself, and England never felt particularly unsafe. I had one female flatmate, Carla, who I planned to meet at the early morning official start of May Day, a chorus at a bridge around 6 a.m. I started out the night by downing whatever I had in the flat. Gin and juice, maybe a vodka Sprite, I can't remember. I was wearing thigh highs, a garter belt, a tight dress, and a giant sweater under my big parka because I wanted to feel cute. I also wore relatively sensible but super heavy shoes because you just walk everywhere all the time, and heels to me never made sense, even for the aesthetic value. The walk from our flat into the city center was about 20 minutes, but you could take a scenic path that meandered along the canal, under and over bridges, and deposited you on the main road about 3 minutes faster than taking the normal road. I had been spooked on the path before, but that night I didn't encounter anyone except a few other clubgoers walking in packs. I ended up at the University Club, an underground bar with low ceilings, sweating walls, and far too much techno for my usual taste. But, like I said, I was there to party, and I kept drinking snake bites, which are half cider and half beer, until I felt uninhibited enough to dance. I ran into a friendly acquaintance of mine who was there studying with another program. We danced for a while, and he told me to come find him at the club next door when I was ready to go somewhere else. Not long after that, I tried to text him that I was coming his way, but he was much drunker than I initially realized and was being dragged out of the club by his friends after vomiting on the floor. So I still hadn't found anyone I wanted to pursue, and my only potential hangout was a miss. I liked the music and the ambiance in the new club better anyway, and decided to stay there, have a beer, and scope out the crowd. This club was weirdly separated by waist-high partitions. Imagine tiny cubicles with walkways that you could see over. Lots of separate seating spaces, I guess. While I was sitting on a bench just off the dance floor, a guy came up to me and asked why I looked so sad. I've always had a serious face, better known as resting bitch face, and it's always mildly annoying, but I'm also a pretty congenial person, so I just smiled and said, "I'm not sad, I'm just people watching." He sat down beside me and introduced himself. I don't remember his name, but I'll call him Leo, and he noticed my accent right away. "Oh, an American girl." He gestured to the beer in my hand. "You lot party pretty hard over there, huh?" I had been drinking for probably 3 hours at this point, but I paced myself, and by now I was only nursing a slight buzz. I smirked at him and said, "Not quiet," got up to leave, but he reached out and said, "Please stay, I'd love to see if I can make you really smile." It was super corny, but obviously one of my hopes that night was just to get a bit of attention, so I sat and talked with him a while about what he did, and eventually I excused myself to go see what else was happening. It all seemed pretty innocuous, and I forgot about him and got drunker and eventually ended up making out with some rugby boy named Daniel in the middle of the dance floor. While I was fumbling with my phone to give Daniel my number, I felt a hand on my back. I turned around, and wouldn't you know it, there was Leo. I was pretty drunk and have an easily readable face, so I'm sure I looked surprised and perturbed. I was trying to get my Mac on, and here's this dude interrupting. What the hell? But when I looked back, Daniel had vanished. I kind of feel like Leo must have made a face or a gesture to him, because Leo then said to me, "What's up? I thought you were with me tonight." I said, "No, a pint doesn't really mean we're together," and started to walk away. But he broke into a grin and said, "Nah, only joking. Like another?" And being the idiot I was, I said sure. At this point it was like 3 a.m. All the clubs were going to close soon, and I still had to kill enough time to meet Carla at the bridge. While we were standing in line, Leo asked what my plans were. I relayed all that to him, kind of thoughtlessly, as I just intended to go walking around the city by myself and figured he'd leave the club to go home and sleep for school or work or whatever. His eyes lit up and he said, "I live just a few streets over. You could get a cab to my place and you could just walk to the bridge when you want to go meet your friend. It sounded legitimate enough because he did name a street that was near the bridge, and I knew it was going to be cold outside. So I protested a little, but pretty weakly, and eventually I caved. We walked out of the club after I finished my beer, and down the street quite a ways toward a cluster of cabs. While we drove, I noticed we were leaving the city center and going into an area that was entirely agricultural/residential, which meant I was going to have to walk much further than I would have if I had just been on my own. "I thought you said you lived close," I said. "Oh, it's just right up here. You can take that footpath back," he said, motioning to the sidewalk directly on the side of the road. I wasn't pleased, but was feeling sort of wary, so I didn't say anything else. We got to his place, which was a boarding house, and he let us in with his key. There was a small entryway and another door, which also required his key. We walked up a small flight of stairs and turned left where his room was. When we got inside, I sat on the floor in front of his TV with my sweater over my knees, and he immediately peeled off his shirt and laid on the bed. At this point, I'm really not drunk enough for this. It's 4:30 in the morning, and I just want to chill out for an hour and then leave. But he clearly wasn't going to stand for that. He got up from the bed after turning the TV on to some sports channel and sat down in front of me. My legs were folded to the side and the sweater had come up so you could see the tops of my garter belt. He popped them against my legs and said, "Now I know you didn't wear these tonight for no one to get a look at," and he bent down as if to kiss me. I turned my head and said, "Actually, I just needed something to keep my tights from falling." I got up from the floor, moving to a sitting position at the end of the bed. He stood in front of me and ran his thumbs around the rim of his shorts. "Have you ever been with a black man before?" he asked. When I shook my head, he let his thing flap out of his shorts and swung it around. I laughed at him and said, "Are you kidding me?" This is when things really took a turn from the slightly uncomfortable to the scary. His face changed. He pulled up his shorts, grabbed both of my arms, and pinned me on the bed. He put his face next to mine and said, "What are you laughing at, little girl? You know I could do you, right? You never had nothing like it." I shoved him off me and said I needed to go to the bathroom. He looked pissed, but told me it was just down the stairs to the right and I need his key to get in. I was really afraid he wasn't going to give it to me, but he did, and I hightailed it to the bathroom with my clutch, but without my sweater or my coat. While I was peeing, the door opened. Leo peeked his head in and said, "I just wanted to make sure you didn't leave." And I said, while trying to cover myself and stop peeing midstream, "Okay, well, I didn't. Can you get out now?" I was pretty loud. I knew we were in a boarding house and I kind of wanted to alert his neighbors. He had stepped into the door and was about to close it behind him. He let me finish in peace, but as soon as I got to the door, he grabbed his key out of my hand. "I'm pretty sure I just need to leave," I said. He told me to shush because I was going to wake people up, but started back up to his room. I actually just had him hand me my jacket and sweater while I stood in the hall, and he asked if we could hang out again later that day. I just turned on my heel and booked it out both front doors. I leapt off the steps and hustled around some hedges on the corner in case he followed me. I ended up walking almost 2 miles back to the bridge, missed the choral ceremony, and broke the bottoms of my shoes, but I was still so full of what-if tears and adrenaline that I didn't end up sleeping until that night. Several years ago, I was using a dating app. It was all fun and games. Sometimes I met some people for hookups, sometimes I didn't. Most of the time I didn't even reply to those who only sent me certain types of unsolicited pictures. One day, this guy shot me a message on there. He was 4 years younger than me, meaning he was 18 at the time when I was 22. I didn't really consider him my type, but at the same time, I also didn't think it would hurt to get to know him. Looks are just looks, and there's been plenty of times where I fell for a guy, not for looks, but for personality. So maybe that could have been the case too. I had just came out of a pretty toxic relationship that involved lots of cheating and trust issues and insecurities. So I really wasn't looking for anything new, but it did feel good to get positive attention from guys. We started texting back and forth, nothing out of the ordinary, but I realized pretty soon that the part of his personality he let me experience consisted of nothing more than, "I'm horny, let's hook up." And look, no slut shaming, because I wasn't that opposed to it. As I said, I just had a nasty breakup and was looking for some fun. So I said yes. We exchanged numbers, agreed on a date, time, and place, and then we went back to our normal lives for now. I had a lot going on at that time. It was only a few months until I moved to a new place, so I already started planning for all of that. And also, a friend of mine invited me to come with him on a trip to Amsterdam, which obviously had to be prepared as well, since that trip was scheduled 2 weeks before I was supposed to move. Therefore, it comes to no one's surprise that I kind of forgot about the guy, until the day we were supposed to meet up. He texted me a few hours earlier if we were still clear. After I scolded myself for forgetting, I told him that we were meeting as planned, even though I knew that would throw my schedule off a little. So I got ready for the date, and I kid you not even an hour before we were supposed to meet, he canceled. I mean, not too big of a deal. It happens that you can't always make it. So he scheduled another day, which he proceeded to cancel as well. Cancellation after cancellation, week after week. 7 different dates, all canceled. Each time it allegedly was a sick relative or pet. So clearly, I took that as he didn't really want to meet me, which would be fine. I'm not everyone's type either, but he could have at least had the decency to not lead me on then. So I told him off about his behavior and blocked him. Maybe that was a little of an overreaction, but I didn't want to waste my time with a guy that seemingly always found excuses to meet me when I could focus on either the moving process, the vacation process, or with another guy who was actually interested in me. But then, he messages me on the dating app, saying how dare I block him, and that he wanted to meet me, but I was just an unappreciative you-know-what. Obviously after that, I blocked him on the app as well. I thought that I had heard the last of him, so I went on with my days. I already started forgetting him after a few weeks. And then another account messaged me, fake pictures and all, but it didn't take long for me to figure out it was him. He basically admitted it in the first place, so another block followed. Another account, another block. Day after day, I thought what was even going on. He didn't want to meet me at first, and now he creates new accounts on the daily to contact me? What the hell? So I just had enough and wanted to tell him off again, when he started to apologize for his behavior, that he was in the wrong, and that he was willing to meet me if I was willing to still meet him. Trust me, I really wanted to blow him off, but in my mind, if I just met him and be really bad at sex or something, he'd probably never contact me again. Stupid, yes, but it was worth a try. So we scheduled a meeting a few days before I was supposed to leave for my trip to Amsterdam, which I stupidly told him about. And since I didn't have a car, he offered to come to my place. Now, I would never ever give a stranger from the internet my address, but back then, I did. I mean, he couldn't possibly be a creep, right? So we met. He came into my house, we sat down on my bed, and exchanged basic pleasantries. Then he stopped talking altogether. He didn't even look at me. To be safe, I wasn't a catfish. I looked exactly like I did in the pictures I had on the app. Only whenever I would ask him something, he would reply with very few words, until I asked him directly about if we'd hook up or not. Then he suddenly started kissing me and, well, I don't have to go into detail. So when he finished, he just sat next to me staring at the wall, not saying a word. At that point, I was pretty annoyed. I get being shy and all, but if it's that intense, how did you muster the courage to go on to a hookup? Anyway, after I went to the bathroom to freshen up, I told him my roommates would be back soon, so he jumped up, said goodbye, and left. I got no other messages from him after. Flash forward to my trip to Amsterdam. My friend, let's call him Joe, and I had lots of fun roaming through the streets of Amsterdam day and night, relaxed in a pretty fancy hotel, and do the usual things that tourists do. One day, we were just walking down a very busy road very close to the main train station, when suddenly I heard a car horn honk loudly next to us. The traffic light was on red, so the person wasn't driving. I thought nothing of it and didn't even look, until the guy started to call my name. The voice was very familiar, and the face that belonged to it was still in my memory. It was my hookup. When I looked, he smiled widely and called out for me to come over, but when he saw Joe, who at that point asked me who that was, the smile faded. I was dumbstruck, so I didn't say anything, but that wasn't necessary. The traffic light just turned green. People started getting agitated that my hookup wouldn't immediately move, so finally he focused on the road again and drove off. That was a hell of a coincidence, that he would be in Amsterdam at the same time. Why wouldn't he say so when I told him of my plans? If he didn't want me to know, why call me out to the middle of a busy road? I didn't allow my mind to think about him intentionally going there to find me. That was impossible. He wasn't interested in me anyway, right? Back at home, my phone started to blow up. Calls, angry texts, new profiles, Didn't matter that I told him to stop. Didn't matter that I threatened to block him again. He told me that I was a slut for going out with another guy despite being in a relationship with him, that I was just like everyone else, that he deserved better than me. And then he said he had just been coming to Amsterdam for me, to surprise me. When I tell you I changed my number and deleted the dating app quicker than I possibly could have dreamt of, I mean I sprinted to my car and drove to the closest shop to get a new number. Not long after, I moved into the new place. I had 2 new roommates that were both in the same college courses I was in. We got along fine, and the house was pretty big. One of my roommates inherited from her mom. The moving went smoothly. I didn't get another text. I didn't get any messages on my social media, and he didn't show up to my old place. Eventually, a few months later, I basically forgot again. For more context, the house was in a village. Not even a small town, but a village. There were no shops, no nothing. Shopping we'd have to do in the next town that was approximately 4 miles away. My room was on the ground floor. The window of that room was right next to the entrance door when you were looking at the house from the outside. And right beside my room outside was the carport. The ground was covered in gravel, and once anyone moved, the light of the carport would turn on. It was a pretty hot summer, so I sometimes slept with my window open. I wasn't that afraid because once again it was a small village, and barely anybody would drive through here. So one night I was just sleeping, even had my back turned towards the window. Then I started to hear someone walking on the gravel towards my window. Immediately I turned around, of course, and I saw a guy walking past my window. Though he didn't look inside, he walked to the mailbox and seemed to throw something inside it, then he left again. I was stunned for a few seconds, but at least it wasn't a murderer, I thought. So as soon as I could move, I closed the window and kept it closed each night from that point onward. This actually happened a few nights. Someone would walk to our mailbox in the middle of the night, but nothing was ever inside, at least that I knew of. It was weird, but maybe one of my roommates was receiving something personal that they just didn't want to share. Cut to a few nights later, I was minding my own business when I suddenly heard some gravel again. My roommates had just gone to bed a half hour ago, and I didn't hear anyone leave, so I thought it was just the usual mailbox guy. But this time, he didn't walk to the mailbox. He just walked to the carport. I know that because the light turned on. Immediately, I texted my roommates about a guy in our carport. One of my roommates, Sarah, who had her room across the hallway from mine, while Mary, the other roommate, had hers upstairs, texted back into our group chat that we'd meet with weapons at the bottom of the stairs to investigate. I grabbed a pair of scissors I had in my room and went to our meeting point. Turns out my weapons were the most useful, since Mary came downstairs with a ukulele and Sarah thought an empty plastic bottle would suffice. After laughing at the absurdity of our weapons of choice, we started getting back in serious mode, going to the side door that led to the carport. Sarah looked through the window of said door but didn't see anyone. The light was turned off too. Just in that moment, we heard someone tampering with our mailbox again. I can't lie, I probably peed my pants a little bit. Immediately we ran to the front door, opened it and looked outside, but there was no one, at least not that we could see. After a look in the mailbox, which was empty of course, we went back inside. Not even 2 minutes later, I got a text from an unknown number saying how cute I looked in my nightgown, that no makeup even made me look prettier. He hoped that I'd come out alone so we could have some fun together like before I moved, but he was sad to find 2 other people with me. Needless to say, none of us slept that night. The police were called immediately and did a sweep, but no one was found on the property. He didn't exactly say it, but I know it was that guy, so I filed a report the next day. Nothing really happened with it, but since nothing else happened like that, I thought he got the message when we called the police. Sometimes I still get messages from an unknown number, but they're pretty harmless and don't really bother any further when I ignore them. But the fear in the back of my mind that one day he could be back stays, of course. In the meantime, I took up self-defense classes. I lived in New Mexico for several years before moving to the Midwest. My friend Amy and I, both females, would spend many days exploring the remote corners of New Mexico, discovering abandoned ghost towns and enjoying the quiet, desolate beauty of the desert. One afternoon in March 2010, we were traveling from Ruidoso to Albuquerque. Always up for exploring, we took a back road rather than traveling the more direct highway. One leg of our journey had us on NM 55. It's a remote, teeny tiny 2-lane highway. We loved those types of roads up until that day. This part of New Mexico was flat and desolate desert. You can see for miles, and there is virtually nothing except dirt and rock between towns, and towns can be miles apart. So we were on NM55 going north. After a few minutes, we saw a white pickup truck up ahead of us going the same direction. Suddenly, he stopped his truck sideways in the middle of the highway, blocking both lanes. We were about a mile away from him, and as we got closer, we began to get uneasy. We could see no reason for him to do this. We were the only other vehicle out there, and we began wondering if we should turn around rather than come up to him and have to stop. We were about a half a mile away from him when he pulled over to the opposite side of the highway, but his truck was still pointed in the direction we were going. We tried to relax a little. Surely this guy was a rancher or something. Maybe he was checking something on his land. As we passed him, we noticed a few things. 1, there was only one person in the truck, a middle-aged guy who never took his eyes off of us. And 2, he was talking into a walkie-talkie. A few seconds after we passed him, he pulled back onto the highway and started following us, but he never got too close. He would get to within a few cars' lengths and then drop back a little and speed up back again to within a few car lengths. We were getting nervous. We realized how alone we really were. We had seen no other traffic on that road, and we hadn't told anyone about our great idea to take this detour. We checked our cell phones and neither one of us had a signal. Typical for remote New Mexico, but scary given our present situation. Amy was driving and speeding up while I frantically checked the map, hoping to find a road that would have more traffic. There was no other road. We had to travel this one to get to the next town. Turning around to go back the other way didn't seem like a good option. After a few minutes, we saw another pickup truck coming toward us. He was going very, very slowly, maybe 20 miles per hour, if that. This pickup was old and beat up, whereas the one behind us was newer. Amy had us up to 75 miles per hour, which wasn't typical for us on these 55 miles per hour highways, and we blew by the old pickup. As we passed it, we saw that it was another middle-aged guy and also talking into a walkie-talkie. After the white pickup passed him, he pulled a U-turn and pulled in behind it. As we watched all this, we could see the white pickup truck guy talking into his walkie-talkie. No doubt these two knew each other. We were being deliberately followed, and for the first and only time in my life, I felt hunted. They stayed right behind us. We watched for obstacles in the road. We truly thought old beat-up pickup guy had set up a trap in the road and our vehicle would be disabled somehow. We talked about driving into the fields since we were in an SUV, but this was obviously their territory, and we were afraid of what would happen if we went off-road and got cornered, so we decided to stay on the highway. By now, white pickup truck guy was right on top of us. We could see him talking into the walkie-talkie, and he stayed right on our bumper. And old beat-up pickup truck guy was right on top of him. The three of us sped down the highway. The white pickup inched closer. His maneuvering and edging closer made it apparent that he was trying to bump us. I watched helplessly as he got to within inches of our back bumper. Amy floored it. We were passing 80 miles per hour and edging up to 90. The road was flat and deserted, but any little thing going wrong would have been catastrophic. We absolutely were not going to slow down or stop if we could help it. The white pickup pulled into the opposite lane and started to gain speed. The only thing we could think of was that he wanted to pass us and get in front of us. If he got in front of us and Buddy was behind us, we'd be boxed in and trapped. We looked frantically at the rocky desert on both sides of us. Our only option was to off-road it. Should we risk it? Could we speed through the desert and make it to safety in one piece? As we topped a small incline, we saw a sign that said Salinas Pueblo Missions National Monument, and it pointed towards a road on the left. And right at that moment, a blue pickup truck pulled out of that road and onto the highway in front of us. As we came up on the blue pickup, we saw the plate said U.S. Park Service. We looked at each other and then looked behind us. Both pickup trucks did U-turns and went the other way. We followed the blue pickup to Mountain Air and then made our way to Albuquerque. I don't know exactly what those guys' intentions were, but they definitely were not good. There is something seriously wrong out there. I notified the state police and they said they would keep an eye on things. This area is very near Belen, New Mexico, which is where Tara Calico was abducted. It's also about 100 miles from Elephant Butte, New Mexico, which is where David Parker Ray had his little secret torture laboratory. We didn't put all that together until later. Even though David Parker Ray had died by the time this happened to us, we do believe that there are others out there just like him, and whoever abducted Tara has never been caught. Maybe we came into meth lab territory, but since this happened on an actual highway rather than a backcountry road, I tend to discount the meth lab theory. Whatever is going on out there, it's not good.